It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce David Rodrigues Garcia. We're here in your beautiful apartment in Yerushalayim in Jerusalem. And David, you came from Holland and you're a survivor, and I'm so grateful to you.
I'm not a survivor.
If you could tell us a little bit about your family history.
Yes, of course I will. The first day, on the first place I was born, the 39th of January. I was born in 39, and the 30th of January, which is a very special day. And if you go to Google and you put 31, 1939, then it's what you get is this.
Die Völker werden in kurzer Zeit erkennen, dass das nationalsozialistische Deutschland keine Feindschaft mit anderen Völkern will. Ich will heute wieder ein Prophet sein. Wenn es dem internationalen Finanzjudentum in und außerhalb Europas gelingen sollte, die Völker noch einmal in einen Weltkrieg zu stürzen, dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisierung der Erde und damit der Sieg des Judentums sein, sondern die Vernichtung der jüdischen Rasse in Europa.
The extermination of the Jewish race in Europe. First time that he claimed this openly. He said, if another time the World War, I will show the text in English. And I will show the text in English. This goes away.
And David, your family has roots in Portugal.
And my family, the family story is a little more complicated than that. Here you have the translation. Speech of Hitler on the Reichstag. Yeah. In the course of my life, I've often been a prophet. A prophet. Hitler makes himself a prophet. Yeah. And have usually been ridiculed for it. Okay? Well, they were laughing at him. During the time of my struggle for power, it was the first instance only the Jewish race that received my prophecies with laughter. And when I said that I would be one day over the leadership of the state and with what of my world nation, and that I would then, among other things, settle the Jewish problem. Their laughter was uproarious. But I think that some of time now they have been laughing on other side of the face. Today I will once more to be a prophet. In the international Jewish financiers outside Europe should succeed in plunging the nations another time in the war, then the result will be not the Bolshevization, as you're talking to two groups of Jews, the Bolshevism and the capitalists. Have nothing to do one with the other. One was living in the United States, one in Russia. The Bolshevism in the earth, and thus the victory of once more into the war, then the result of the Bolshevization and the earth, and then the victory of Jewry, but in relation, not the victory of Jewry, but the inhalation of the Jewish race in Europe.
And this was on the 30th of the 1st.
I was born on this day.
The 30th of the 1st in 1939.
Yeah. When I was born, I was affected, I should be born, because at the same day we decided, it was the first day she placed openly about the determination of the Jewish race in Europe. It's the first time he said that. There are people who keep this date as the beginning of the Holocaust. Because the Wallensee Villa, what was in Berlin, is only the work out of the plan how to do it. But his decision is here. And that day I was born. It was on the 6th anniversary of the Nazarene. The Nazarene came to power in 1933 on the 3rd of January. And that is the anniversary the 6th anniversary of the 1970. And then he decided, he says openly, I say, sometimes you can just say that Hitler was sometimes an honest murderer, because he said exactly what he planned. Nobody took him for serious, but exactly what he planned. I think my father had no time at that time, when I was born on the same day, to hear his speech in the German Parliament, the Reichstag. There's no time to go now to think about it, because it's the first son, and probably I was born at home. Okay, I am from both sides, from Spanish and Portuguese origin. My mother...
Hold on, I'm gonna just...
My mother was Sarah Rodrigues Garcia, Vieira. Now I go to Portugal in a month to see, I know exactly where the first Vieira came from, and that is in South Portugal, a name called Faro. Francisco Faro came about 1630, quite early, to Holland, and he changed his name in David. David Vieira, parents Abandena, a very well-known Sephardic family, Sephardic of also Jews, and they married in Amsterdam. So that's my mother's the only picture I have.
Can
I said, you can still see that she is smiling.
If I can
my
just have a
mother is
look.
thought to be, she was a very lively and a very spontaneous character. She liked to sing, she liked to give small performances, she liked to play out. And that's...
Can I just ask you, David?
Her daughter was heard from far, you could hear. That's what you told me.
How did you keep this photograph? How did this photograph survive?
The photos I have, this one is of the only aunt who survived the war, her sister. And her sister managed to escape from Westerbork with her husband. It's really written in the history of Westerbork. I can read to you. It's one of the cases that they succeeded to fly. Then they go to different hiding places. My aunt, it's called Tante Greet, the aunt Greet. Greet is Margaret. And she went to a Protestant family, and her husband went to a Catholic family. After the war, her husband wanted to be Catholic. She didn't like. She felt the style still Jewish, but she was not Orthodox at all. Not completely. The whole family of Vieira, especially her mother's side, which is called Rosa, also her mother came from Spanish origin. They were in fact very from socialists, I would say. They were not. The Jews in that area was not so much. My father, the other way, got a very strict Jewish education, and the grandfather, where I'm called after, David, yes, the grandfather was really Shomer Mitzvot. It was really kept Shabbat, and they tell about the good atmosphere you had in the family, how we would sing the Portuguese Zmirot on the table on Shabbat. And he had a good job. He was a kind of, not a merchant, but somebody who had to prove the worth of diamond, but in a rough way, not just manipulated with anything, just a raw diamond. To give you how much work it was, how much carats and so forth. He had a good job and he earned quite a good money. Most of the Dutch people at that time the really Dutch. I don't talk about the family of Pachter, who came from Lita, or others, but really those who grew up in Dutch were in the diamond industry. What is today Antwerp was at that time Amsterdam. In any case, the only stuff like that, the only thing you can see her smile. But I don't remember her. Maybe I will tell you later. One remembrance, I don't know if it's really a memory or a dream. Difficult, because I was only 3 when I left her. She brought me to the first hiding place. The first hiding place I remember, but my parents not. She was very, very fun with me, and she brought me to studios for photos, you understand? And she made very, very, very nice photos of me as
And this is when you were 3?
2.5, 3, yeah. 2.5, I suppose. But she brought me very far. Of the beginning of 3 or 2.5. This is my father. Of my father I have a few photos, but this is with me. See, my father came sitting in his house, and this house now, we got the Stolperstein next month. And my mother was very lively and very extrovert, and he was very introvert and a very thoughtful man, quite different of my mother. My mother came from America, they liked parties and dancing. And my father came from an Orthodox family, originally. And my aunt, that means the sister of my mother, they called him a stiff. He was dancing like a shelf, yeah. And she said, no, really, she didn't understand my father, but he was 10 years older than my mother.
10 years older?
Yeah, almost 11. Yes, he was born in 1933, my mother was born in 1914. Okay. But that is in the house, in the Meerhuizenstraat in Amsterdam, where a few Jews were living also in the same neighborhood, especially the so-called river quarter in Amsterdam, where the Dutch rivers have been remembered. There are a lot of rivers, a lot of canals. This I showed you already. This is the translation. And this is my last hiding. My first hiding was in the middle of Holland called Nunspeet. It's a recreation area with woods and fields. And there was a small, very small farmer, not really a range, but a very small farmer. And he was there with his husband, and he had a daughter of my age. I think they were Protestants, because it's a Protestant area, from Protestants. They were nice to me, I can't say, and I was playing with the daughter. Both, we had probably, I had regression, and it did still would still urinate in my clothes. I think that was because we went from place to place. I lost my mother, never seen my mother again after that. And I thought that today we were in a WC, but that was a small budke, we say in Hebrew, outside. No, it's not in the house. And I saw that he was affected, do the same thing as I, but in a different way. So we stood both with our pants down, also she and also I, underwear. And then the man came in and said, immediately put up your slipper, your kind of crowd. And I always thought, why? Because was he so embarrassed by the fact that a small child is standing naked naked and shows his genitals, which are so small or whatsoever. Afterwards, I've understood why he did it. What do you think?
Because you had a Brit Milah.
Yes.
You were circumcised.
I was circumcised. And he was afraid that it would be discovered. And therefore, I was never allowed to put down again my underwear. Understand? Because here's one of our otot, one of our signs of Brit. We have it as well, which is definitely in your body. You can't hide it. I heard of many survivors in Poland, for instance. They dress themselves like girls. They dress themselves like girls. And because Polish has a different grammar for women and men, they suddenly had for men to translate themselves in the female language of Polish, and they had to hide their genitals, and it's very difficult, of course, and to dress like girls and so on. But you could never undress, so that it would be seen. Yes.
David,
now this is here I come with a family here with 6 daughters.
Can I just ask, the first family that you were taken to with your mother,
the first
do you
family,
remember the name?
Probably after he saw this, and probably was afraid I would go like a small child sometimes. They put me to another place. My mother brought me to Nunspeet. That's the first place.
And do you remember the name of the family, or do you know the name?
No. How do you expect that that a child of 3 is noting the name of the family and the address? I don't know. That's not real. You understand? No, I don't know.
Do you have
only of the last family I've been, and I know very well because I stayed there also a year after the war, and also later in my great vacations. The time that you were free from school, I went to visit them again. So every year I came down, and so also the grandchildren of the parents who were there, that means the children of the daughters. They had a very big family, Catholic family. And today I am still in contact with the grandchildren. When I was 70 years old, we made a misiba, 9 people came to Holland, to Israel. 9 people came to Jerusalem as I celebrated my 70th birthday, and they were there, and they were of my last and also most emotional, and maybe also most frightening hiding place I had. From there I went to a place it's called Zwolle. Zwolle is a town of mediate height, not an average town, small town. Zwolle is more in the north. This was in the center of Holland. Now we're going northwards. You have a department that is called Overijssel. There the main city of Overijssel is Zwolle. Zwolle, I came to a house completely different. That was a very small farmer with a very small farmer's house and his family, and his wife always with how do you say?
Apron.
Yeah, and he always in the blue overall. Nice girl. She was my age. We played together. But then there came the family who had a parquet floor and tablets and beautiful mebel, beautiful furniture, and it was completely other surroundment. I didn't remember such a thing. However, I think in the house of my parents, it was also not so poor as in Nunspeet, I'm sure. Also they had probably a nice arranged house, but that was especially well-to-do people who were showing off on everything what they had in their house. Everything was nice, the bathroom, the kitchen, especially the living room. But they had two children, one very small girl, younger than me, and a boy of, at that time, 4 years old, same age as I had. This kid was very jealous of me, because suddenly you get competition. It didn't go well. The parents said exclusively to the kids not to take me outside on the street. They went to play on the street with their friends, but I had to stay in the room, was not allowed to get down. So about a year I was living not only in the house. The woman there was very tensed, and yeah, the boy made a lot of problems because of it. In order to attract the attention of his mother, he would drink ink, you know. And you know, once we would write with a pen, we would dip in the ink and then write. And then his mother took him to the toilet, and he had put her finger in his mouth, so he would vomit all the ink in it. Oh, it would become completely black. And I stood there and I was completely startled what this boy was doing. And when I was listening to that, how all the time he attracted with this ink drinking the attention of his mother. So I was looking at, and I was in fact the cause that he drank the ink. Was a very, she was a little gets annoyed about that I got to see that, how I was doing that. But one time, Theo was his name, succeeded to take me outside on the street. It was the first time in a year I came outside. I saw people walking in a canal. I don't know, a channel. I don't know if it was frozen. I don't know if it was low water, but it looked, to me, it became completely unreal. In fact, I wasn't used anymore to reality, because I was living all the time closed in this home. Also outside things I didn't understand. Or they are walking on ice of the canal, or they were walking on low waters I didn't understand. In any case, he said, the kids asked for where do you come? He said, yeah, that we have a kind of very dark brother with curls, and you know, he lived with us, and his name is Benny Brandt. That was my hiding name. And then the parents became very, very anxious and put me father. Then somebody of the illegal underground movement against the Germans. My mother only brought me to Nunspeet. This was already my second address. The illegal, but they followed my way. They saw when they knew exactly that there I was stopped, and I went to the next hiding place. So there came a woman, also she got a special, nice part, and she doesn't live anymore. But you should also have interviewed her, because she was only 20 years old, and she was bringing children from hiding place to hiding place, and also the place where she lived in Leiden or Den Haag. She herself and her family hid a complete Jewish family, where only the parents did not stay alive, but all the 5 children did. She was called G. van Dijk, support man. And she told, yes, and why this kid is so dark. You know, I had 2 Sephardic parents. So I had black curled hair, you can still see that, and very dark.
And is this, what is the name of the lady who...
The name of the lady is Bertha. And I'm going to Holland by the...
This is in 1944.
This is in 1934. This is me, this is Bertha, this is the youngest daughter of the family who adopted me. They had 6 daughters. Bertha was the youngest, but she was 8 years older than me. She still lived. She was the mother superior in a monastery. She was the mother superior in a monastery. It's the most important job a sister could get, and she worked in Africa, and she worked in Suriname, which was a Dutch colony. But here she is young, and she was the youngest of the 6. The oldest was already 23, 24, and was already engaged. But because of the war, they couldn't marry. So that is Bertha, and that is me. Just if I could have a little bigger.
And you remember her?
I remember her very well, and she's still writing me for my birthday. And she was also on my 70th birthday.
She came?
She came. She's 8 years older than me, so she at that time was 78. You understand? Yeah. Now, Bertha, she writes me and called me my hiding brother. Onderduikbroer, my hiding brother. Okay. You know why he's so dark? Because he has an Indonesian mother and a Dutch father. And they just, with the outbreak of the war, they had to travel back to Indonesia, and he has to need a place to be in rest, and they will come to take him. Which was completely nonsense, but no. They themselves said, this family from the Berg van Uden, we didn't believe a word of the story. We knew very well that it was a Jewish child, because they hired a Jewish student before. And this man was so stupid and in fact careless, that he walked around in the whole village, and they were, at last he got a warning also of the illegal movement that he should should play at least at one place. She had 6 daughters, and they didn't believe that, but she said, we put, with a lot of cover, we told his father, to everybody wants to hear that he has an Indonesian mother, how we knew that was not true. A few days later came the head of the school of Bertha and the other younger sisters, there were 6. And he said, Mr. Janus van den Berg, this is not an Indonesian child, but you know this is a Jewish child. Would you risk all your family to take that child in the house? You will be determining you and your daughters and everything. Which was true. If they would catch them, not only me they would kill, the whole family they would kill. Would you sacrifice your 6 daughters for one child? That said the chaplain and the head of the school. And then the mother stood up and said, and I should sacrifice an innocent small child? That for I could never feel responsible when I come and the Lord in heaven. Okay? That I couldn't tell him, didn't really to this child, and therefore he stays here. And I will save this child. I know exactly what dangers are connected with it. And the farmer stood up and he said, now he is here, he will stay here, just like that. Sure, point. So I stayed there. But when I came, I was very much crying, because the older woman, their mother, had a nut built here, like the Romans one did. And it was very tense here, and she was also a very tense woman. I saw that the farmer's wife was had the same kind of hairdress, and I thought, oh, okay, again a woman with a lot of tension, but this wasn't true. And they said that I started to cry. I said, there's a lot of sand here on the pavement, because the room looked like a pavement with big stones, blue, red. It was a big central room, they called it a head, and it was Saturday, Shabbat. And they were celebrating Sunday, and they would put nice white sand on the floor. I didn't understand. I said, this floor is like a pavement outside a house with a lot of sand. Okay, I explained to Eddie Man, I started to cry again. He said, don't worry. We have a Lord in heaven, and he will take care of you. Oh, I think you already made your bed. Come and have a look. It was a small bed standing in an upper room. Now, I had a lot of interviews, and they asked me from where was I religious. Not of my parents, because I don't remember them, and they were not religious, I know, certainly. My grandfather died long before the war. They were very religious, they were very traditional, Portuguese also. Not I know, but then I understood that this is an absurd word. You are sent from place to place, and here comes a family and say, somebody there is guarding you. What's another? And the Cape Moore was friends with the authorities, the same man, yes. And Jesus, always nice. So they asked for where came my religious feelings. I said, these religious feelings come from here. I can't deny. That means their simple belief and their honesty, like their mother, they were very impressive for me. They were one unlettered people. They hardly know to write scripts, but they had they lived according to their principles, and they had a very, very innocent belief. It made a lot of, also later, a lot of impression on me. It's one of the reasons. Of course, Jews who come to interview me can't accept that, but it's the truth.
I think it's incredible. They were authentic.
That's the truth. In any case, the director of the school and the main chaplain of the church, they were not, treating me, not exposing me to the world. They kept. And I was normally allowed there because it is a very, very far off range, like a big father, with about 9-10 cows, but also have acres for wheat, for rye, also vegetables, And even tobacco they were taking, because the man would have tobacco, which which you put in your mouth, and so he wrote his tobacco himself. Chew tobacco, we call that in Dutch. But in any case, everything was there. Fruit, had a big orchard, all kinds of berries, cranberries, blackberries, gooseberries, I never saw them here. Was a lot of eggs, meat, They had cows for the milk, and they had swines for pork. And they ate pork every day. So also me.
But you never went hungry?
I was never hungry. Dare not. I was a very slow eater. Now I must explain you something else. This family was living in a big farm, standing in the middle of the fields. One moment. So this is the farm. Yeah. Here is a big wood. It looks pretty dark there. And here is a sand road. It goes here. There's a cross point. One of the roads goes there, and one of the roads goes here. The sand road has a private road to the farm. Okay. In this wood were stationed the German army.
So close.
On this road was the Allied forces, British and Canadian. The farm stood exactly in the mid. In Holland, I have to show you a card of Holland, there is in fact the delta of the Rhine. The delta of the Rhine had a few arms. One of them was the Maas and was very close to our place. What the Germans did after the invasion of Normandy, in any case, the Allied troops went north and they conquered North France, later Belgium, and then they came to Holland. And in Holland they were advancing, but the Germans blew up the bridges over those rivers and they couldn't get farther. Therefore, on this border, close to the rivers, where they could get farther and where the Germans could easily attack them because they were protected by the rivers and the blown up bridges, was really a battlefield. A battlefield. And we heard the shots from both sides, and also grenades of infantry. And it became so dangerous that not only I went to a kind of bunker, but the whole family. They didn't stay at home. You had wolves fly over the house and in the house. It's a terrible situation. I got at that time hallucinations because I didn't understand why with a raincoat I was put in the bed. They did that in order if one of the Germans would enter the farmer's house, they could maybe identify me, so I could immediately be taken away. I was hiding in a big box for long breads. They had long rye breads. And I was lying there with something on the rye breads together with me. That's my hiding place for the Germans in the case they would enter. And then they went to to a silo. Can you say that in English? A silo? A place to store food around, just for food for the cattle. There were something like kohlrabi cut in, and they would cover it with beams, on the beams earth, and the earth would close a very round pitch of about 6 meters, 7 meters, with the walls were standing about 1.5 meters above the ground, and the pit had another meter down. So 2.5 meters was what a canal was sitting. It had a small opening, and there, instead of food for the cattle, they put their straw and on mattresses, and we are sitting there for weeks as the two parties shot from both ways. Even this place, this silo, was also the cutter. The man was sitting in the ferry, the farmer, and he heard the sound of the flying grenade. And he would know where he was falling. Just by the sound of the you would know where it falls. He said, this doesn't come here. That go to the neighbor's there from them. That will go to Van Bos on the other side. And this is, oh! Here comes one in our wood magazine. It was quite close, yeah. And obviously, so they said, did you once see the potato eaters of Van Gogh? Okay. There were people like that. They would put a pan in the middle of the room, or the middle of this place, so, with baked potatoes. Everybody got a fork, take out of the pan. So they would eat. There was no electricity. There was no, in fact, also no water system. There was a well, and they had a pump near the well, and there they got the water from. And electricity, there was, in other words, there were petrol lamps. Yeah, and we were sitting with a petrol lamp in the kerk, day and night. We didn't see the daylight, which was completely closed. I had also before already, when we were sleeping in the farm, I had a lot of hallucinations, not dreams, hallucinations. It's always the question people would ask me, you were a child of 3, 4, what would you understand? You have no idea what's going on. And I can tell you this is untrue. Also a little kid certainly has enough feeling that he's persecuted. And I had 3 types of dreams. I was put on a higher team when I was afraid from the darkness. They put a petrol lamp light. This petrol lamp became suddenly, that was my first sleeping place in an upper room. The petrol lamp made himself a lighted man who came to me. A small girl who I would play with, he was on my side. And he put out a big slaughter mess and wanted to kill this girl. I had never heard of the Akedah. Maybe I have seen how they killed a swine. Besides, I wouldn't know. And then I started to scream and screamed. And then all the 6 daughters came from their room. And would say, what happens, what you saw? I said, hey, the light man, he would almost killed my little girlfriend here. Afterwards I had a dream when they put me to the big central room, that was closer to everybody, close to the farmer and his wife and to his daughters. And there was a connection with the stable. There was a kind of porter from the living room to the stable. And the stable door would go open, and 3 or 5 German soldiers entered in their green army costumes. And they came to me and said, "Would you like to make us a cup of tea?" And I was a boy of 4. I couldn't answer them. No, of course. The civilian doesn't know, and he would slap himself on his feet. They were German soldiers. Look, this boy, even a cup of tea can't give. And then he started to scream. They stood up and they saw him fleeing out of the door. Then the girls were so afraid about me, so concerned about me, that they took them in their own sleeping room. In the own sleeping room I could look on the orchard, a part of the orchard. In the orchard sat a band of people, and they were having a big band, just to cook. And they had big bands, and they were playing with the how you call it?
A drums.
Okay.
With the
They were
drums.
playing like cymbals, like cymbals.
A cymbal.
They played, and then they were singing too, but the pan was on fire in the tree. Don't ask me how. It was still on fire, but it was completely dead. And then Penny suddenly looked to me, and he said, "Hey, I should go on the pan and be cooked," you understand? I never learned about cannibals and see a thing like that. But, you know, those dreams gave a very good insight that also small kids, with their feelings, they're sometimes more open than grown-up people, because they have still the possibility to push away the reality and start with what we call in German verneinen. So that can't be. Such a thing is impossible, so can't be the reality. But a child has a kind of openness that he understands the reality when he has dreams and his hallucinations. I always to myself, this I have to remember, because they don't know what a child is doing in such a place.
David, did you ever have recurring these dreams? Did they ever recur?
Please what?
Did they ever recur? Did you ever dream these dreams again? Did they ever come back to you, these dreams?
Sometimes I have, yes, what you call it a nightmare. Sometimes. Still. Especially then came the so-called airborne of Eisenhower. And lots of planes went into the whole area. Big transport planes like the Hercules. And they would spit out parachutists. And this happened. And it was one cordon after the other. The daughter Bertha you saw here, she came down to her mother and said, "Mother, the earth is being destroyed. The sun, the moon and the stars are falling from heaven." My mother said, "If it's so, we have to to accept whatever God gives to us." "No, but I don't want to die," she said. She didn't want the end of the world. She didn't want how you call that, the last temptation. A commandment, you call that? The last judgment. Yeah. He wasn't right for that. It was Bertha. in any case, when we were in the silo, not a grain silo, but a silo of the food for the battle, one day they took away the shelf I was setting up, and I saw a long row of tanks till the horizon. They were completely for dust and for, well, both flipping was our eyes, because that we saw for the first time daylight, and they had a lot of dust of the sandways. There was not any asphalt way in the surrounding, only sandways, so the tanks made a lot of dust. And so we thought, oh, now we are freed. No, said the people, you are not just liberated, because know well that this war here is not ended, and there will be a big tank battle on this village. And therefore, everybody has to evacuate to a more safer place. The whole village ran out with cars and horses. That didn't have cars or something. There were also no ways. Cars and horses and the main things he need. I went about 13 kilometers east of Berlicum, where I was. There lived the financier. She was engaged, the oldest girl, and her finance was living there. And there was a unit of cannon, artillery, let's say, yeah? And a lot of noise. But okay, I slept together with Bertha in the same bed. I felt safe when she was so close. But one of the girls said our beds were jumping up of the shots. Was such about it, the blow of the shooting was so bad that even ever was. But on the other side, there was a nice thing. Also, every war has its own romantics. There was a canteen in the army camp. In the canteen, they would sell chocolate and they would sell cakes. Both things I didn't see for years. So I and Bertha went there, and he said, oh, what nice, this is a nice boy with a nice boy. No. This is a nice small boy, and he has curls, and this was a nice blonde girl. And we were, every morning, we went to the army camp, went to the canteen, and every morning we were in fact surprised by the things we got, and we were very happy.
And they gave you chocolate and cake?
Yes, and they put me in a truck that I should try to move the truck, but I was so small, okay, that when I took the wheel, how do you call it?
The steering wheel.
The steering, yes. I couldn't get the gas pedal. And when I stood on the gas pedal, I couldn't get to the side wheel. And therefore I couldn't move the trunk, but they made photos of me and they were very happy. We were very much really spoiled by those soldiers. We were very much treated very well.
Which soldiers were these? Were these
Kennedys? Most were Kennedys and some English. They gave me coins of all kinds of countries in Europe where they were, as a thing to play with.
And David, was the war still going, or it had come not till the end?
Then came the big battle. Two of her sisters had to stay at home because there's a farm with cattle. They had to be fed. And they stayed home and remained in the same silo, what was made in fact for cattle fur, but they used it as a hiding place, as a bunker in fact. And they told that they were still shooting. The Germans made on the house which had reed roofs, they made an observation tower so they could oversee. So the Germans really conquered the farm. Yeah. And once upon a day a soldier came in out. He knew that there was two daughters of the family sleeping there, and he panted, and his hands were all wet from cold sweat. And they came to one of them and he said, "Why? How are you so cold? Why you're so panting? What happened?" And he put up his arms and he went out, and they heard a shot. War! Really war in the middle of the front. That was the situation there. But after they were freed and we went back from this far place, Loosbroek, on the cars and the horses and the main things you needed in order to live. Pyjamas, clothes, church book, not forget. Because they were very from Catholics. And went back, and then in fact the whole area was freed in September 44. Don't forget that the north of Holland, above the river, was only freed on 10th of May in 45. So we were at least half a year earlier, we were not anymore German occupied territory. And then the English, or who know who, they would throw silver paper, you know, what we have here. Franka, jij zegt niet aan aluminium?
Aluminium paper.
Yeah, penny paper. They throw it on the fields in order to disturb the radar of the enemy. And I and Bertha went out and saw those big strokes of silver here. Went to the fields and we didn't pick flowers, we plucked silver and put it on our hair. So we felt so lucky. Really a romantic was. Okay, but things came to an end. And the woman who brought me to this place, Grey van Dijk, a woman of about 20 years old, she came and told who I was really. My name was Benny Brandt. They told I had an Indonesian mother, quite a nice woman, but black, and a Dutch father. They said, he's not Benny Brandt, his name is David Rodrigues Garcia. Which is quite a difficult name, two sides. I immediately remembered my name, that I remember. But I had also no idea who was Benny Brandt. I didn't remember my Indonesian mother, neither my real mother, my parents. I didn't remember. Where do I come from? Who am I? So you have here, in fact, a small child of 6 years old without identification. You don't know who you are. And therefore I think the rest of my life, that's also the way I became religious, is looking for my real identity. And therefore also next month, not only in the Stolperstein, with my biggest son, I will go to Portugal to see where my family of my mother came from Faro, and that is true because I have the whole family tree of the Vieiras. And they started there, Francisco Vieira. And still, I went also to Mexico, where probably my father came from. And from Mexico I went to Suriname. And from Suriname we went to Amsterdam. I followed these traces. Also, I want exactly to know who am I. And then I was in fact just to tell you another story. Here's the farm. That's the farm, respect. Here's the orchard. Here's town. Here are blackberries and cranberries. That is after the war. You see, the fire was the week door. They took another small child who had a mother who was embarrassed because she was the daughter of a Protestant. Of a Protestant chaplain, they call it Dutch domine, I don't know what the name is.
Domine, a priest, like a...
Yeah, a priest, but Protestant. I don't think he said priest. A priest is normally Catholic. But there he was, and his father didn't want this unlegal child, and let's give it to the family, and also took care for him. And that is me, you see, with the girls, sitting near the water well. See the walls of the water well?
Yeah.
And here you have the milk cans. So that is Berlicum. I'm sitting on a horse together with him. It's Janus' father.
That's the father.
Yeah. There you see a part of the well. Here was in fact the main shed for the corn, and the front of the house, you can't see here, so in the other place, it was the room. Here were stables for cows. Here was a big shed for grain and straw, which was also given to the guy. Now I have to tell you a complete other story. My father, when he was taken from Westerbork to Sobibor, when he was still in Dutch territory, he threw out a small letter to who later became my stepfather. That is Anton Bentelijn, you see here. And that is Clara Bentelijn, you see here. This note or letter, which was thrown out of the window, there was no window, of the train, arrived his address in Amsterdam. It is also a miracle.
It's a miracle.
It's also a miracle. So, because he was sitting in the illegal movement, he could trace me, and he knew what would be by my last hiding place, and he came to see me. First in Zwolle, they also visited once, and later that. My stepmother, if you can't see it, she has a little Jewish face. If you look very well.
And these were relatives? David, this family, Anton and Clara, were they relatives of your parents?
Yes. Clara was not Jewish, but she had a Jewish father. Her Jewish father was a brother of my grandmother from father's side, Rodrigues Garcia Morpurgo. Her father was called Mordechai Morpurgo, but she had a non-Jewish mother.
And Anton? Her husband Anton?
Anton was completely gone from one of the most poor popular neighborhoods of Amsterdam. It's called the Jordaan. He was really, he would still speak with Amsterdam accent, you can't.
And he wasn't Jewish?
And he wasn't Jewish at all. But, I must say from both of three couples of Jews in their house. They had a big house, and a house with a shop. Behind the shop was the living area. There was a big saloon where they never were. A chamber kitchen where they always were. It was easy, but also more easy to warm up the place. They had an upper room. Down they had a working place. He was making bags, making leatherware, suitcases, bags, purses, again, like things like that. And there was a big magazine, also downside, with a lot of triplex, you know, this wood which is very thick, very put together. In order, he made also special suitcases for musical instruments for the band. Okay, and then he used also triplex and other things. He would make special things. And a very, at that time, that's still a very flourishing workroom.
How did your father know? How did he know them?
How did he know where I was?
No, how did how did your father know?
Well, he was a member. He also, they didn't come back. I understood later when they went to Sobibor, so they were already then. There were admissions of the Red Cross were 35,000 Jews of Holland were killed in Sobibor. 35.
It's unbelievable.
Thousand Jews.
It's unbelievable.
Were killed in war. Sobibor was very simple. Sobibor was almost in Ukraine, on the border of Germany, far from the center of Poland, in the middle of the woods. There were swamps also. The train, the rails would sometimes sink.
The railway tracks.
Because the bottom was too steep. And in the middle of the woods, nobody could see. And when they came there, they said, "Welcome, you're coming to a working camp." That's it. And now you will write a letter that you can send to your family, your parents, that you arrived well here. And then we take your properties and put them on the certain side. Of course you can get them back afterwards. And then you have to go to, because we are very, very clean here, you have to go to the bathrooms, there's the showers. And that were the bathrooms. After they wrote a letter that they arrived well. There came so many transports that it happened that once transport arrived when the former group was still in the gas chambers. And then they heard the cries of the people. So it wasn't good, so they could hear that something is happening there, something terrible. So they had a flock of geese, you say in American, and they would drive them up, and they said quack, 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 and then you could hear the screams of the people in the gas chambers for the next mission who came. That was Sobibor. Sobibor was not a work camp. It was a camp which was called the so-called Reinhardkamps, Sobibor, Treblinka and Belzig. And they were straight to extermination. There was no selection. Someone who came to Sobibor was killed immediately. No work camp. No selection. Just killing. That was Sobibor. Okay, but they knew he didn't come back. And the Red Cross already confronted that.
David, can I ask you, how did your father know Anton and Clara? Did he know them before the war? How did they have the connection?
So the underground movement in Holland had a lot of connections. the Illegate underground movement against the Germans, a lot of connections. And he could follow my whole trail from hiding place to hiding place. And he could know where three couples were taken in their house from 1942 till the liberation, 1945, May. Three couples. Two couples of German Jews, Epstein were their names, another Monat, and a couple of Dutch Jews, Bosboom called. Ben and Marietje, so Mary Bosboom. And they were hiding in this place, don't think, 6 minutes of Anne Frank. Same area, center of Amsterdam. Center of Amsterdam, in between the canals. He was on Prinsengracht, Uiterstraat, in between the two canals. Herengracht, Keizersgracht. Center of Amsterdam. Today one of the most walking streets you can have in Amsterdam, and find everything there. Shops and particular field. But he had a shop there, a nice shop. Small. Today they took the whole house and made a warehouse out of it. But okay.
But your father...
I felt way well with my 6 mothers. One was dressing me, one was closing my shoes, one would comb my hair, one would wash me. When I came there in Amsterdam, I didn't know anything. Everything was that. I was very spoiled by those four hiding mothers. Only Bertha, she was close to my age, because she was only 8 years more than me. She was 12, 13.
But can I just ask you, David, that your father sent this address to Anton and Clara?
No, because in the first place he knew that she was his cousin.
He knew. Did he had contact with her before?
No, they knew each other also before the war.
Before the war.
Her father, Mordechai Morpurgo, always claimed that in fact his wife wanted to make a York. We say in Dutch, come out as a Jew. Well,
to reveal.
To convert himself. But then they need to make a teacher to give her instruction of all the Jewish war. The teacher cost money. My father didn't have money. He was going with a small car with ice creams from different farmers. And he had no money. Very poor family. Also he came from a very poor family in Amsterdam. His father married twice, and his last mother was a traditional stepmother. I mean, she ejected the children, she ejected him, not any love. His father wanted to interrupt the new marriage, put them out with a master of a profession in those days, and he was the pupil. We have a special word in Hebrew for that. I don't know how you call that in English. A master where some young child tried to get in leather work. And one day he had some quarrel with his master, and he fled west to his home. And his father asked, "What are you doing here?" He should go back to him. And he didn't want to go, because it was his home. So his father, he was 13 years old, called the police to set him out of the house. This is the background of Anton. It's unbelievable. So problematic, you have no idea. And I stepped on that later also. But that is the background of Anton. Now, I didn't like to go with them look to my face.
You're not happy?
Not at all. I didn't want to live with 6 young mothers and came to people who almost passed the 50s, so she passed the 50s already, and who was close to the 50s, who could be my grandparents, who never had kids, And I was very suspicious about him, and I wanted to stay where I was.
And when they came to fetch you,
Yeah.
you didn't want to leave?
Okay. Pardon?
When they came to see you, you didn't want to leave where you were staying?
Yes, of course. Here I lived with my stepparents. Now, my stepfather Anton was a very, really, they both, I said, should be Hasidim or
Righteous amongst the nations.
But he didn't save me, but he saved. We were also involved, and I said, but he didn't save me. He wanted 3 hiding families. The last one was of Brabant, I told you. But as stubborn and firm he was in his opposition to the Nazis, so was also his education. And I was a very vulnerable child with a lot of things and a lot of hallucinations and dreams. They had never had children in the past the 50s. But it could be my grandfather, parents. But okay, I got deported. They wanted also a child. One of the reasons that Clara was not persecuted, according to German Jews, she was a half Jew. Since it also been the German rules, she was a half Jew. She should also be persecuted, but she was not able to give birth. How you call it in the English word?
Barren.
Okay. And therefore, because she was married to a non-Jew, not able to have children, she was not persecuted. There were people in Holland, especially men, they were married to a non-Jewish woman, and they would make themselves unfertile, went to a doctor to take the genitals and the hormones in order not to consider a man who can give birth to a child. And in that way, together with the non-Jews, so the Jewish mates, they survived the war. You can say, could you do a thing like that? I don't know. I've never been in their place. I can't.
It's hard to judge.
No. So, your father. I had a very difficult time with the Bentelas.
How long did you stay with them?
10 years.
10 years?
10 years. 10 dark years. Now one thing you have to understand, it is not just the Holocaust. It is also if you're a completely unidentified child, which is Jewish and considered Indonesian, suddenly comes my parents are not his parents, where both are not Jewish. Both could be the characters, and then you have a lot of results and sufferings because of the Holocaust. And therefore and it's not my idea, I heard it from a friend, there's also a Holocaust after the Holocaust. Until you grow up, until you get the children, until you find a mate, it's not so easy anymore. Here's in the Protestant school I was.
And this is in Amsterdam?
Protestant school, at the end, they made a big deal, and that is
And David, did you know at this time that you were Jewish?
I knew. I must say on this school, which were very open Protestants, they're called they are liberate, reformed.
Where are you in the picture?
They didn't mistreat me. The last year I was on this school, at that time, I was made bar mitzvah.
David, where are you in the picture?
Here.
So you're sitting.
See the girls? We were both the best of the class. Theo, and me. And the girls in another room.
And did the other children know that you were Jewish as well?
Yes.
And did you ever have
I won't
any?
deny that.
Did you ever have
I can't
any?
say except the teacher for gymnastics. I think he was an anti-Semite, but the other people behaved very well to me. The Spanish-Portuguese community was looking for kids who survived, and they want them to give him special Jewish, what you call Sunday school. And because on Saturday on this school I had to come. There was no Shabbat, no possibility, because I didn't even know it was Shabbat. But on the Sunday school there was the Chazan of the community, and he was a Jewish teacher for some very crazy people like me. He has taken around most orphans also like me, and he gave them Jewish lessons, Jewish instruction, Jewish education. He was a very nice man, and we liked him. However, he was not a strong man. He was himself. He was in Bergen-Belsen. He got polio, and he was not going straight, and so on. But he taught me how to read the Hebrew characters. It's very important. The alphabet. And then how to read words. And then learn how to pronounce the punctuation. And then also he said, you know, you're quite musical, you're nothing that. And I think you can say the Haftarah on your Bar Mitzvah day. And they prepared me 2 years to say the Haftarah of Beshalach, which is Shirat Dvorah. In this community, the Portuguese community, they would not line the whole parsha. They would only say the Haftarah. That was enough, not only because I was completely ignorant about these things, but nobody. They said the Haftarah. I was thinking my community were only 2 boys who knew what you call lion, to read from the perkament in Parashat Shavua. But I knew the Haftarah, and I said Haftarah. Never so many non-Jewish people have been in the synagogue, because they were all, of course, acquaintances of that.
Which synagogue did you have it in? Was it the main Portuguese?
Maybe I can take this picture. This is a print of the 16th century of the Jewish quarter of Amsterdam. This is the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue in Amsterdam. They were the first ones. They were the first Jews in Amsterdam. There were no other Jews at that time. They came in the 16th century. The first community was opened in 1602. The second community put in this synagogue, which should be like the temple that was there, okay? And they were in fact not religious Jews. They had also been instructed and so on. But they wanted very, very well to be correct Jews and not Christians and whatsoever. And that is the biggest one, and it was surrounded by small houses where there were, for instance, a place was a coffee room, and a place was the library, and a place. And that is called Waterlooplein, which was the center. 50 years later came the Ashkenazi, and they put on this synagogue, what was called the Naya Shul.
I've been there.
This is called the Esnoga. That means still his Portuguese name, Esnoga. And still later, after the persecutions in Poland and the war of the Cossacks and Khmelnytsia, came the Ostjiden, and they made the Dritschule. And here you can see exactly the history of Dutch Jewry.
Amazing.
Because the first ones who learned on the universities of Salamanca and Valladolid and later Cumbria in Portugal, they were intellectual people. And one of them, Voltaire, didn't like the Jews, but one of them, called Abraham de Pinto, wrote a letter. You know, he said, we knew already to eat with fork and knife long before you knew what is that. They were, you know, cultural, intellectual Jews. And they looked a little down under the Tedescos, that is the Spanish word for Germans. Okay? High Dutch, they try to give the High German Jews, Tedescos. And the Tedescos look down on the Ostjuden. And here you can see that exactly according to the constructions of the buildings. Never mind the Portuguese Jews who were at the beginning, the 16th, 17th century, much richer than the Poles and who had nothing. They try also to support them, but always a little with the nose in the high, you know.
It's amazing.
At that time, so that was a synagogue I was bewitched.
And a lot of non-Jews came.
There's also an inside printed. I can look for it, but I don't have it at the moment. It's very beautiful, one of the most beautiful synagogues in Europe. Very big.
Very big.
Zoals er many. Trieste, from where I was coming, Trieste, a very big synagogue. In Antwerp is a very big synagogue. But there's no millions. Also, this synagogue is now part of the Jewish Museum because the community could not support anymore the reparations and for that what was cost, because it is standing on a swamp. It means under the floor of the synagogue is water. You can go with a small boat under the water, and see the fundaments.
David, can I ask you, did you make a lot of friends when you went to the Cheder on the Sunday? Did you make Jewish friends?
Of course. I had Jewish friends. I still was on the Protestant school. I was invited for the Bal Maskeim Purim by the Jewish community. And I was also invited to the Leil HaSeder in the Jewish community, where a lot of orphans also were. There's not the only one. And,
were there any Jewish children also in the Protestant school, in your class?
No, I was the only one.
And
there was only one anti-Semite, and that was the school.
And were your step-parents supportive of you? Did they support you going to Sunday school, to the Cheder? And
they were not against it. I must say they were very open. When we arrived, that is the mother of Berlicham, so quite old, the mother of the 6 daughters.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
That is a daughter who should be... In Holland there's something with the Scots, somebody is... the word is fleeting from me. In Hebrew is apostropos, tutor.
A tutor.
A tutor. The tutor was he, and the critical tutor should be she. But she went also to a monastery, like Bertha, but to a monastery was completely closed. She could never leave there. She could just go to the garden and nothing more. So there was not much to watch what would be done with me. And as a controlling tutor, she was in fact worthless. She was an excluder, was like a jail. But she had a special relation with me, I must say.
And there you...
And that was the family. This is the brother of Anton.
And there you...
And his wife. She's only the family of him and the family of Berlicham together in Amsterdam.
So you had a connection, you kept in contact?
I don't, I'll tell you that comes later, but I've not any connection. My foster mother, Tante Corrie, I don't see her here. Now I still have to show you something else of what they did. See Bar Mitzvah? Adon vergwerd Hasse Bentela Morpurgo. Morpurgo is a Jewish name, yes?
Yeah.
Have the honor to invite you from the Bar Mitzvah. That means the grown up for the church. Also have people there. The Catholics have their communion on the 12th year, and there's something there. Which was real sacred, played for at 9 o'clock in the Portuguese synagogue in Amsterdam. Anton Cornelius Wentelaar, Clara Bentele Morpurgo. Reception from 2 to 4 in Hartenstraat 9, where I lived. And that's that. Also, this is the snowgram from the other side. See it? It's a very beautiful building.
Beautiful.
One of the biggest ones with big windows also. You see inside.
That's inside, yeah.
Yeah. And I stood on the, what you call the Amem, the Bima, and sit after all the time. I had a feeling that I would burst out in laughter. So there was I.
So David, this must have been one of the first bar mitzvahs after the war, after the.
Not the first.
But one of the
bar mitzvah, but I didn't learn anything, so he couldn't say also after, and he couldn't follow the prayer. But they took him to the synagogue, also a boy of my age, but he was not involved in the whole ceremony. I was. And my grandfather was not against it, which is a little strange, but I will tell you later. So that I showed you already. The present I got from my foster father was to see my only uncle, a brother of my father, was left and fled at the beginning of the war to England. He took a fisher boat to Dover and later moved to London. He never came to see me, but he wrote so once in a few months, a letter to his cousin, Clara. Of course, like my father was a cousin, also he was a cousin, a brother of my father. And I must say, he has to praise Anton Bentelaar that he paid it. He made it possible. He wanted to come. She went with a big magenta.
This is your mother's sister that survived the war.
Yeah, aunt. He was an uncle. He wrote nice letters to Anton and Clara Bentelaar, but okay.
What was his name?
It was my foster father who made it possible for me to see him.
What was his name, your uncle?
Elias Rodrigues Garcia.
And you went to London?
I flew alone to London when I was 13 years old. They put me on at that time you had a Constellation, I don't know if you remember, but it were the first planes. And I landed in London, and my uncle was waiting for me. I looked at him, he said, I was expecting you bigger, because I heard it was the first Rodrigues Garcia who could ride on a bicycle. It was the first Garcia who was skating on the ice. And they thought I would be a very sportive person and big and well-developed. And then he said, I would expect it to be bigger, but look well, I am taller as him. Can you see that? He said, well, I'm not bigger, but I wasn't taller than a mitzvah boy.
And you're 13?
Can you see that? And she was a very nice woman. I must say, very much more
loving?
Much more loving, and with a big heart. She was called my Aunt Judith.
And the girl
She
in
was
the...
the sister of a very famous Chazan in Amsterdam. I visited her daughter who survived sometimes in Holland. Later they went to the United States, and I heard now that
And David, the girl in the picture?
she became 100 years old in an old age home in England. Eli died already 2 years after I visited him. He had diabetics and high blood pressure, and he got stroke.
2 years after you visited?
2 years
So it
after,
was a
2 or
mazal?
3 years. Very early afterwards he killed. And then I stayed in contact. And there's still one thing I want to show you of the 3 couples who were hidden in the house of my foster parents.
David, who's the girl in the picture?
You go in the pictures of the birth of the neighbor.
Just the neighbor.
Not any relation to the man. Because they like to see, they used her kind of a grandchild, but she was not a grandchild. She was a German parent, she called Victoria, I remember. She could make a lot of, I could speak English, but not so much. I learned a little English also in elementary school. I could say something. But of course she was much more sure. She had a lot of, she was confident about herself. And I was a boy, didn't know the surrounding whatsoever. We always praised her and said, look, this girl is putting you in her pocket.
David, did they have any children?
Didn't have any children. Never. Very, very, very careful because of my aunt Judith. She loved children, but she didn't become pregnant, never. She stayed unfertile. What is the word in English?
As a barren. No, she couldn't have children. It's they're barren.
Another thing I have to show you. Julius and Mary Monard were during 3 years hidden by my foster parents. And they gave this picture, which is a painter on wood, not on fasten, and they wrote on the back side, as a memory for our hounding time from the 27/11 of 1924 till the 15th of May
1945.
1942, 1904, 3 years. Julius and Mary Monard. Ken je man je willen
David, this is an original painting.
Original. As a memory on our hiding with you from the 27th November in 1942 till the 15th of May in 1945. Julius and Mary Monard.
Can we just show this? This is incredible.
Shall I put? See what I have zeggen. Dat was ook kwamen we.
And then
Silamta or
I just want to do the other side. If you can turn it around. And this is in their writing.
It's in Dutch.
And did this painting, was this in the house? Do you remember seeing this painting in the house? And they
This
gave
was
this
in the house of my foster parents, and when my stepmother died, she left it in her house and I took it. Married with her husband who called Wallaga, so she was Wallaga Vieira. She finished with Wallaga. She kind of a kind of divorce.
This was your mother's sister who survived the war?
Yes, and he wanted also to make Catholic his 2 kids, one Manja and then one was called, please the name. Manja still living, and Manja I'm still writing to her. We have correspondence, also on WhatsApp. She has 2 daughters, one called Eugenie and one called Golda, very Jewish name.
Where are they living? Are they in Holland?
They're in Holland, living in The Hague. And she had also a son, Frank. He was killed in an army incident during an army exercise in Holland. So then she only left one. She married several times with the wrong people, all goyim, and she divorced several times, and she was completely out when she lost her son. She was really kind. And then she went to a psychologist, and the psychologist committed suicide. It was also with him, he couldn't speak anymore. Had a very, one after the other, very difficult life. And then she had a man who was very nice to her as a gentleman. He used her, he looked like a butler to her. He visited many times. He said, Mrs. Vieira, that starts fine. And she would say, yes, go auntie, come here, do this, come that, okay. They visited me twice in Israel. So we had a good, and I visit also her when I'm in Holland. But she passed away. One of her husbands, the butler, made a road accident. It finished her completely. Not finished her completely, but she was very invalid at that time.
And how did she?
She couldn't. I needed a wheelchair and so on. But she was a very strong woman.
David, how did she survive the war? How did she manage to survive?
She fled together with her husband by the wired threat of the camp, you know.
This from Westerbork?
They made, yes. And it was considered as a very...
it was rare.
Very courageous. That's what they did. He is on the Jewish high school. That is the locandera. Here you have, if you did speak to him, I don't know, Brampakte. That was the daughter of the chief rabbi of Holland, Shula Suster. That girl there are still reunions of the Jewish high school also in Israel, and I met her. She doesn't feel anymore so well. He came originally, was born in Bandung in Indonesia, was called Langzan, but a Jew. Langzan, and he went to the United States. His parents probably died in the Japanese camps in Indonesia.
And where are you in the picture?
There's a story I'm going to tell you.
David, where are you?
I am here.
And how old were you in this picture?
I was in this picture about 13, 14 years. La Condiera, a little father. That's a classroom. He went to Israel, but never met him. She stayed in Holland. She was really the beauty of the time. I fell in love with her. We did my house. We went to visit her. She was living for a long time in this is not our country. I want to serve in the Israeli army, and they came here.
They came
He
here.
forced his family to come here. Judith Neuhaus, she looks still very well, even better than he. And that was also Yvonne Meijers. With this boy, I came together with him to Israel, but I must a little go farther. I went after Jewish high school. I went to a kind of seminary. It was called Middello, and that was a kind of I would say not a university, but a little smaller. To study how to help youth of the peripheral Jews who were not only Jews, all children survived the war and had problems, and we learned creative therapies. There were two different directions. One for children homes. There were at that time still 3 Jewish children homes. I wanted to work there. And one for community centers, for clubs for young boys or girls. I took the leader on that. I made my practical year, but I couldn't get along with her. But I must say she was very practical. The kids would stand up in time and would get their food in time and get a special center to go to school and so on. But she was a little cold. What is more important? Then I made another stage and went to the town of Groningen. This is my worst time I had. Do you know anybody there? I don't know if you made also an interview with Josef Vleeshouwer. Yes. So he was just married in Groningen and he invited me on Shabbat. At that time, when I went to Groningen, at the end of the Bergstation, the Jewish children home, I became Shomer. At a very difficult time because it was a very small community, not very welcome also to strangers. And there was one shop you could once in the time buy kosher cheese, and for the rest I ate all the time smoked mackerel and herring because there was not so much food to eat. I had in their kitchen one pan to fry an egg. Okay. But I felt very bad there. We go a little farther. I'm missing here a picture. No, not here.
And David, who influenced you?
This is some middle also. This is a music class. I was also very good in music. Later I became a teacher music here in Israel. But I wanted to show my 21st birthday, where I look very sad. The situation between me and my father went so bad that a social worker of a Jewish children installation helped me to get out of the house, and I went to a Jewish boys' home.
And your stepmother, was she supportive of you?
My mother would mainly support me, my stepmother, but was afraid of him. He was a kind of terrorist. What he said, that's the law. And I had no intervention. Also, man and wife have to be one. So my mother had little choice to be different. But she tried something here and there also to spoil me. And then I went with Herman Hopsveld, who today is Potsie Asset. He's in a home from a home of the Mediterranean Catechism in old age home. And we went on mopeds, that means not completely motorcycles, but from the smaller size. And we made the travel from Amsterdam to Israel on this moped. That means we went to Belgium, France, Italy, went over to Corfu, which is France. From Corfu to the mainland of Greece. We went to Patros. From Patros we went to Athens. In Athens we came to the port, Piraeus. From Piraeus we took a boat together. They took also cars. Together with our factory we went to Haifa. I came to Haifa and the first thing, the boat didn't come really to the quay, and the first things I heard when the small boat came to take the people to the land, it said that the ship didn't make the whole way till the quay where it could be. I heard a song, and this song was told to me, the song my mother would sing in French, and I heard it in Hebrew, and then that was what my mother would perform and sing. With this, oui, tout va bien, Madame de la Marquise. Everything is very well. Oh, you happen something. Your horse, how you call it in English, a horse, Dupont in French, but how could a horse, is there a feminine word for a horse? Mary? A Mary? Yeah. So the Mary died, but everything besides that very well. But there was also a fire in the stable of the Mary, and it died, and part of the house. But very, very, very well. And then the fire came farther in the big salon with a marquise, yes, a marquise. And she asked the servant of the house, how is everything? And he smiled. And at the time said, everything, très bien, very well, okay, don't worry. And then the house was prepared, it's not so bad. And then also her husband, the Baron, played suicide. Right. That's the end of the word. I think this song was a prophecy what is going to happen. People of St. Holland said, oh, don't worry, it will not be so bad. But slowly but surely, the whole jury was killed. And she would play the Dutch song I heard when I arrived in the port. And then I said, I'm coming to my mother country. This was a song of my mother. In Hebrew.
It's incredible that it was playing.
Yeah. So here in Israel I had a lot of Ulpan, here in Bakka, same neighbor. Ulpan, 5 months I was studying Hebrew.
And how old were you when you came?
23.
23.
In 62 I came. This is in the army.
He went into the army.
This is me.
And
I was recruiting the army, but I don't need exercises for 3 months because I was very old. I was 25 when I came to the army. I said, it's too much for the 3 complete years I can't do. First I didn't accept that, but later I came with a general who was quite understanding, so no, you can't, at the age of 28 to start my life after 3 years. I'm not married, I have no family, I have no relatives in Israel, so I'm making money. He put me in the army regiment. It was quite. My foster father died. My foster died on my 21st birthday, and so you can see it here. He asked the next day, 21st birthday. 21, you were an adult in Holland at that time. Today 18, but then it was 21. The next morning after the birthday party at home of my 21st year, he asked, are you still intending to go to Israel? I said yes. He already took me from the Zionist Jews movement. It was Habonim at that time. It wasn't religious, but he said, what they want from you, that is a brainwash. Never go there. So he asked me when I was 21 years old, are you still have the intention to travel to Israel? I said, certainly. He said, then I don't want to see you anymore. But I still remained 2 years in Holland to finish my studies and practical work. Also in the TU's in Holland, he didn't see me. And when I went to Israel, they were completely separated. My stepmother was mainly crying when he didn't want that the stepmother would make illegal meetings with my stepmother in restaurants that they would see each other. And
David, you had it really difficult.
And then I went to a test, and also want to be a school teacher, to a seminary, to for the other word I can't find it. And that is together with a singer. I fell in love here with another girl who came from Switzerland. Here I'm living with the friends on a student flat. This is my first marriage and first wife. My stepmother, Clara Bentela, came to see me. She was from her third year in a children's home where I worked, and she was in fact a pupil of me. She was 14, I was 21 at the time. And she came after 7 years. She came to Israel. I had very difficulty to marry because I had no money, no family. The first thing was always, how much do you earn? Have you a heritage? Did you inherit somebody or what? Do you have a house? All this I didn't have. I went really from neighborhood to neighborhood in Jerusalem. And in fact this was a misfortune, which is also, I would say, a result of the Shoah. Because I chose a girl who had exactly the same background like me. And she was orphan from her mother's side from the age of 3. Her father insisted she go to a new church. In fact, she had also, after the war, a new Jewish mother. She was in very good relations with a Jewish family who was in this institution, Bergstichting, what she was. She made Hitgaira.
Converted.
She was converted in her 18th year, and she came to Israel in her 21 years. She did not convert for me, she was already. And then we were meeting each other, but she was in fact looking for a loving father, and I was looking for a loving mother, and we didn't get anything. We didn't feel the love in order to give it to somebody else. That's the real person. She converted adultery, and she went with another man. During our marriage, a girl of this man was born, so she was a mamzeret. It was a very difficult process that tried to get around, but I didn't have sexual relations with her for a complete year. It couldn't be mine. Zo geweest het niet. But I was married to her. Ik had my first daughter, Zakia.
This is with your...
And my first son, which is Johan. I was divorced from her. I demanded the children. I was 3 years alone with them. My boy was 2 years old, and my girl was 3.5 years. I had no grandmother, no mother, no sister to park them in some place, I would say. It's a difficult time, but I was still more lucky than the year before when they were still with their mother, and the process of our
separation,
our divorce went on. But the Dayanim on this sitting of the Beit Din was Avraham Shapira, who later became the chief rabbi, Ashkenazi chief rabbi. And the other one was Mordechai Eliyahu, who was the Sephardic chief rabbi. They were my Dayanim. There was a lot, but at the end there was a fake about the girl. There was they say it's not completely clear, but it was completely clear to me, and also to Mordechai Eliyahu. It was completely clear to him that she was not my child. And Avraham Shapira wanted to make a compromise, because it's very difficult for such a girl to
very
be
difficult.
And at the end I got the children, and I treated them first. Then I married to her.
Ah, that's wonderful.
And she, that is the synagogue of Yoknemense in the old city.
And how old are you when you got married?
She accepted. He got immediately 2 children. But at that time we were already 4 and 6.5 when they came to Franca, my wife. And here, so you see my wife, and the marriage. This is the father of my bride. This is not so important. You have.
And David, what happened to that
I
girl?
got together 6 children. And the last thing I want to show you. All of them founded families.
Oh, this is wonderful.
And that's my wife got for her birthday.
Oh, yeah, this is wonderful.
25 grandchildren.
Cana and Hora, this is wonderful.
Of all colors and of sorts.
Oh, yeah, this is so wonderful.
You may, if you want.
It's beautiful. Wow, this is magnificent.
Yeah.
David, this is amazing. This is the real nachas. This is the real...
That is the nachat, nachon. That is the real nachat. So, from one person who came alone to Israel, didn't have anybody, nobody came to take me from it, was always alone. And the big thing, one of the miracles also in my life, my stepmother always said, I hope he will die first. So she made already an arrangement with a lawyer that when he dies first, she will get all the money. And they would say to each other, the situation was so bad, they would say to each other, my opinion, you can fall dead here, I don't mind. So bad was the situation. But you really a little startled when it really happens. And my stepmother was together with him in the center stage. He fell down at a heart tragic and a dom leven, since the heart didn't
attack.
work anymore, and passed away. And she sent me money to be on his burying ceremony. And that was the last time I didn't see him. They were exposing that many Goyim Jew. I didn't want to see that. I want to. And I even gave a spade at the grave of my fasting father who sent me away because I went to Israel, who had a lot of money and didn't make any testament. My stepmother, with inheritance of all his capital, he had 3 houses in Amsterdam. And when she died, she gave me the money, and I haven't been present at her last hours, because at the same hour my first son Franka was born. I couldn't leave her. That's it. So the man who in fact threw me off the house, the man who hated his wife and his wife hated him, who went with all the money of him, that was me and my family.
David, it's incredible. Your story is just something, it's just remarkable beyond belief. David,
A lot of miracles.
it's
A lot of miracles. I have to go down.
David, can I just thank you for 1 minute?
Yes.
Because I'm so grateful to you. David, I am so grateful to you. There are no words to express my appreciation. I think you are absolutely remarkable. You're a miracle. All the miracles that happen to you, it's just, it's hard to believe, but it's incredible. Your story is one nice after
The note of
another.
my father, and how
He dropped
my
the
father
note.
was supposed to be Zionistic, and he sent me out of the house.
It's amazing. David, can I ask, the family that saved you, were they given Chasidei Motalam?
Yes.
They were. They were
Yes.
given
Yeah.
righteous amongst the nations.
Maybe it's...
No, it's but they were given righteous amongst the nations.
They came here. Many, 4 of the sisters were too old to come here, so there were 2 ceremonies. One in Holland, at the same grave. 200 people were present, with an orchestra and a choir. And I was given, of course, a speech, and the family was given a speech.
And this is also in Yad Vashem.
And, no, that was in Holland.
But you had it.
Later they came here, and they had a small ceremony, I must say, here, and she got Bertha. She took the youngest one. Of course, the others were very old, they weren't present. She took the
plaque, the recognition.
Yeah, and you have the engraved in the memory stone in that machine. Familie van Udo van der Meer. They got it.
And David,
But my foster parents never got it, and I feel very bad about it. Because they did a lot of good.
And they saved other Jews as well.
They saved 6 Jews, that's what I say. 6 Jews in the middle of the center of Amsterdam, 6 minutes of the back house of Father Frank. And they were never executed.
David, I have to just ask, can I ask you one last question, David? And this is the hardest question. If the tables were turned, and if you were in that situation, would you, I know it's a very difficult question, but would you endanger your family to save somebody else, what was done to you? If you were in that position, I know it's a very difficult question to ask.
If I have my present family, and I'm glad I am a big family with 25 grandchildren, I don't think I would be able to that, especially after what happened to me. I don't know. It's very difficult to compare yourself with people like that who did it.
They are angels.
So as the chaplain of the village said, You are sacrificing your six daughters when you come.
It's unbelievable. It's something you...
But you know, they get a lot of, a lot
of honor, a lot of rewards.
Big families, one of 14 children, one of 12 children, one of 9 children. None of the families had 2 went to the monastery.
David, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you. You should just be well at Mavis Room.
So we're going to see him now. It's the Staplestone.
All the very best. But David, thank you so much.
And we'll visit him also in Brabant, the south.